what is the best pressure washer for auto detailing?
Hi, I'm Ivan.
I'm Nick, and I hope he has the answer because this is a complicated question that gets people kind of excited, riled up, emotional. It's a topic of conversation, and it continues to be so in the detailing world.
You know, is the $200 pressure washer that much worse than the $2,000 pressure washer? Or is the $5,000 pressure washer so much better than the $2,000 pressure washer?
I would say it comes down to day trading versus long-term investing. Because a cheap pressure washer will do everything you need it to do for a finite amount of time, at least in my experience.
Yeah, and how often are you using the pressure washer? Are you using it daily or are you using it once a month? So if you're using it once a month, the $2,000 pressure washer, maybe not the greatest idea. If you happen to leave stuff in your garage and it freezes overnight and you forgot to drain the water out of your pressure washer, well, whether you have a $5,000 pressure washer or a $50 pressure washer, it's gone.
It's gone. I have owned a Kranzel before, am now getting another Kranzel. I like the idea of the German quality, but I will say Kranzels are quiet.
They're extremely quiet.
They're quiet, and that is something that I've come to appreciate more and more as I get older.
Yeah, exactly. No, definitely, you get what you pay for in terms of quality, but there are budget options that are really good. And, you know, Sunjoe is one of them. Ryobi actually makes a good little pressure washer. And we're talking electric pressure washers here. Gas pressure washers, a whole other conversation.
Wait, are you not getting a gas pressure washer for your house?
You can, you know, and if that's what you need, then I would suggest not getting 2 pressure washers. You don't need 2. Now, when I had my shop, we had 3 pressure washers. Actually, we had 4. But the reason we had 4 was we had our main steam pressure washer. So it was actually a steamer, big propane thing, you know, stood about this tall, was this big around, big chimney, because we washed with hot water or steam most of the time. Then we had our high pressure washer, and we had it dialed down to like 800 or 900 PSI and half a gallon per minute, but it was a beast. It was a 5 horsepower electric motor on 600 volt with, you know, the huge cat pump on it, the biggest cat pump we could get. But then we dialed it back because we had numbers of guns in the shop, and we could run 4 pressure washer guns at the same time off the same machine. It had made no difference whatsoever to the machine. So that's one of the things. But one of the things that annoys me with the cheaper pressure washers, and it's something that you can get we'll say lower priced pressure washer and upgrade it dramatically, is change the hose. Now, in the shop here, we've got a really good quality hose. It's actually 100 feet long. So, you know, we can go outside and do bigger things like my bus. And there'll be a video up here of us cleaning my bus. But nonetheless, the lower cost pressure washer that we had in our first videos, because we had the Kranzel on order, but it hadn't come in yet. So we went to Home Depot, got a lower cost pressure washer. The problem with that is the hose is hard and you're always caught up in the hose. So if you have a lower cost pressure washer, one upgrade you can do is go to your local pressure washer supply or even farm supply, because they normally have pressure washer supplies there, and you can get a good flexible hose for it.
Is that going to cost you as much as the $100 Sunjoe?
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe even more.
Is it worth it? I mean, would you say that, you know, the trigger, the sprayer, an upgrade to something, you know, like an MTM or whatever the big name brands are,
right?
Or a hose. If you're going to get a budget pressure washer, what is the most important upgrade from there? Is it the trigger? Is it a nice hose? What are your thoughts on that?
For me, let's say we have the basic home pressure washer. We've had it stuffed in the back of the garage for years. Now we're starting to get into detailing, and we want to use a pressure washer and a foam cannon. We already have the pressure washer. We have that box that we plug into water, we plug to electricity, and water comes out at high pressure.
It's already there, right?
It's already there.
Let's work with that. Okay, I like that.
So my first upgrade would definitely be the hose, because you could have the nicest, smoothest trigger, but then you've got this hose that is like a spring in a brick, and it just
so annoying.
It doesn't cooperate. So get a cooperative hose, then upgrade the trigger. And when that nice little machine that you've had for a couple years decides to take a vacation and not work anymore, then
Permanent vacation.
yeah, then you can upgrade the pressure washer itself. But the nice thing about the higher, or not the nice thing, but the different thing about the high grade pressure washers is they generally don't come with a hose. You just get the pressure washer. And you can go to, again, you can get the Kranzla, you can get the high-end, the internet famous pressure washers, or you can go to your local pressure washer supply house and tell them what you want to do. And they will put together a pump and a motor that go together that will fit your needs.
You may not even know, this is what makes Ivan great, you may not even know there's a local pressure washer supply house, because that's the first time I've ever heard of one.
And they're everywhere.
You don't realize it until you delve into that. Like,
yeah.
I started to delve into carpet cleaning janitorial world when I got frustrated with just degreasers that everyone was using in detailing. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And you realize there are industry-specific ecosystems out there.
Oh, definitely.
And you're like, there's a pressure washer supply house. And I'm like, of course there is. I don't know what the one is local
Yeah.
to me, but people use these in industrial ways, and they've got every possible fitting you could ever imagine.
Exactly.
Right?
So like in my shop, I love a flexible hose. And we were doing not high volume water. We weren't doing 5 gallons per minute. So we had a 1/4 inch hose. Super flexible. It's like, an air hose wasn't any more difficult, or an extension cord wasn't any more difficult to work with. It was lightweight. It was easy to maneuver. It was easy to twist around and all that. And you weren't fighting the hose all the time. And I saw a question online a little while ago that I found quite interesting.
Okay.
They said, do I need to buy a 1/2 inch hose, a 3/8 hose, or a 3/4 inch hose for my pressure washer? My response was, no, get a 1/4 inch hose. And then the comments started. It's like, that's way too small. You'll never get the flow. Your pressure washer is pushing water through a size, whatever size hose you want, out an orifice that's maybe 20 mils round. The size of that nozzle, if your hose was the size of that nozzle all the way back to the machine, it wouldn't make a difference, because that is your restriction. Whether you have a big hose or a small hose, you still have that small restriction at the end. So get a smaller, more flexible hose. It's lighter weight, it's more flexible, costs less, and you can put more on your hose reel.
I know that when it comes to extension cords, you typically want a shorter extension cord and a
bigger
larger
extension.
gauge.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
You want like 12 to 15 gauge?
No, they're even numbers.
Oh,
so, yeah.
I just know the higher you go, the more impressive it is.
Actually, the higher the number, the smaller the wire. So,
but you want a higher number.
No, you want a 12.
Okay.
So you want a 12 or 14 gauge extension cord around detailing.
I knew 12 was it, because when I went to get my nice steamer, it was more than $1,000. I talked to the guy at length, Kevin with Vapor Chief.
Right, yeah.
And he talked to me about the gauge mattering a lot.
Oh, definitely,
So I got the good extension cord because I wanted to maintain the integrity of the continuum.
The machine. So yeah, with extension cords, the smaller the number, the bigger the gauge. The bigger the gauge, the less restriction. So you can go further with an extension cord.
But ideally, you don't want a super long extension cord. The shorter the extension cord, the better it is for your machine.
Exactly, yeah.
All of that to say, does it matter how long your hose is as it relates to performance?
With your pressure washer? No.
Okay.
A long hose, the only thing it will do is maybe give you a little delay when you start. And I'll refer you back to our original videos on the channel here when we didn't have the good pressure washer. We'd pull the trigger, and then we'd start getting pressure. Whereas now we pull the trigger and we don't get immediate pressure, but it's almost there. In my shop, the pressure washer was actually running all day long. The motor never stopped. It was a VFD, so variable frequency drive. So the motor is always turning very slowly, and when there's a demand, then the motor speeds up. But we always had pressure at the nozzle ready to go. And in a production shop, that's important. Now at home, you can wait 2 or 3 seconds before you get pressure. So just something to consider. And the better guns also have quick release tips. So some of the less expensive pressure washers, I carry a little Bosch pressure washer in the bus. And it doesn't have interchangeable, it has 2 interchangeable tips, but they're not industry standard tips. So I have to use the little Bosch tips. Now, I bought it because I needed to clean something and it just happens to fit in the bus. It's really small and it does what I need to do. But at home for the comfort and the fun of detailing, and you're switching between your nozzle and your foam cannon, well then it's nice to have a quick release that's solid and will work. So
I'll tell you, if you're detailing every single day and you're cleaning cars, you really notice the difference between a budget pressure washer and a high-end one.
oh, definitely.
Just because when you're really abusing your tools, things break. You don't
Yeah.
realize that things break until you start working with tools every day, and then you start to value things that last versus things that break.
Yeah.
And it's all about how you handle them and maintain them. But certain things, like the Master Blaster that
Yeah.
we had in our shop, it is loud, it feels antiquated, and yet as abused as that thing was, it just kept on keeping on, and that I value. So
Yeah, exactly.
the high quality tool certainly, pays for itself in the long run.
Right. And the higher quality pressure washers, or the more industrial pressure washers, we'll put it that way, they normally have rebuild kits. And if you're looking at a pressure washer, make sure that the pump you're looking at, you can get a rebuild kit. And rebuilding a pressure washer pump is simple. You're changing the oil and you're changing normally the pistons and a head gasket. So very simple to do. And in my shop, once a year, we take the pressure washer apart, we clean it, we put it back together, change the belt, and we're good to go. And that way we didn't have breakdowns. We didn't have any issues with our pressure washer because we were maintaining it. We were rebuilding it before it had time to be a catastrophic breakdown.
You mentioned PSI.
Right.
The pressure washer at home that you get it at Walmart or Amazon, it's not going to have a way to adjust PSI.
Most of them don't, and really it's not that necessary. We've played around here. Our pressure washer here is adjustable, and we have a video. I don't know if it's out yet. The editing guy here sometimes takes time. But we got all sorts of different videos going on, and when we get together here, we'll record videos for days.
We have been filming content 12 hours a day.
Right,
So, yeah.
but anyways, we played around
But
with the
anyways.
different pressure on the pressure washer and the foam cannon. Now, when you're washing a car, like I mentioned in my shop, we only had it set to 1,000 PSI. We're not cleaning farm equipment. We're not cleaning construction equipment. We're not degreasing, all sorts of weird things. We're just cleaning cars. So you don't need 2,000 PSI and 5 gallons per minute. It's just a waste of energy. It's a waste of water, and you actually risk damaging the vehicle.
So is there something else that's customizable besides PSI?
Actually, by changing the nozzle, you can change a lot of different things. So on your pressure washer, most of the pressure washers you buy that have the replaceable tips, you'll get like 4 different tips with it. And those 4 different tips are just varying nozzle sizes and fan size. So you can have some that have a very tight, almost straight line. You can have some that are a really wide fan, and you can also change the orifice size. So you can get a 3.0, a 2.0, 1.5 orifice size. And by changing the smaller the orifice size, the pressure will build higher in your machine. You'll get higher pressure, but less volume of water.
Okay, there's a lot going on here. I know like the red tips are typically like stripped the concrete.
Yeah.
Those are like super. Now is that higher PSI or what is happening?
No,
with
that's a tighter fan. So
a tighter fan.
that'll be your zero. You can
0
get,
degree or
Yeah, 0, 10, 15, 25, 40 are the general angles that you can find in the market.
And that, I feel like the tighter the degree, the lower the number, the greater chance you have of stripping clear coat. And
Yeah.
you literally can't strip concrete. But what is actually happening there?
Well, it's just the angle. So you have 0 degrees, you have 10, you have 15, you have 25, you have 45. So it's just the angle of the
opening.
opening.
Okay. And then with the orifice size, let's say we maintain the same angle, but we're changing orifice size. Then what is happening with, and I know you mentioned it, but I'm trying to think of PSI and impact
so basically,
on paint.
think of that. We have the big fireman's water hose. And at the end of the fireman's water hose, we just put one tiny little hole. And that tiny little hole is what is causing restriction. So that's actually going to build pressure in the hose. By building pressure in the hose, you have more pressure coming out the end of the nozzle.
That's the orifice?
Yeah, so that's the orifice size. The angle makes no difference. It's the orifice size that will change your PSI.
And the orifice size is, it looks like a quick connect, it goes on the end of the hose?
I'll be back in a minute. keep talking.
I'm gonna keep on talking. So I know how to use a pressure washer. I know how to detail. I've owned a Kranzel before. I like the good stuff, but I don't know all the technical stuff, and so I like asking Ivan all of this. You know, sometimes you can learn all the technical mumbo jumbo, and I know that's why you're here if you're still listening, because you care deeply about this. And there's 1,000 YouTube videos out there about high-end pressure washing systems, so y'all know more than I do. But I do appreciate a good system when I know one, and when I feel it, and I know how to use it. And at the end of the day, it feels like when I have a good foam cannon, I get better foam. When I have a nice pressure washer, it's quiet, the hose is smooth, I enjoy it more. I guess you could say buy nicer, buy twice, because certainly when you have a nice pressure washer, it is more fun. But I've used them all, and I would say that for me, the hose is annoying. I do like a good trigger though. Foam cannon, I feel like it's less important to have the higher end foam cannon. As long as you're getting decent foam,
Yeah.
I don't think that I lose sleep at night thinking, I wish I had that foam cannon or this one. They all seem to work fairly well.
Yeah, and actually we, before deciding which foam cannon to carry on our website, we tested a lot of foam cannons, and the one we're using is the one that gave us the highest amount of foam. So, but as I was mentioning, we have different orifice sizes, and we'll get B-roll of this, or he'll get B-roll of this. But this nozzle here, which is a plastic nozzle, has a big hole in the end of it. So when you're shooting with your pressure washer, there's hardly any pressure behind it because it's got a big hole. Then we have this one's got a very small hole. So this is a 30-degree angle, and do they have the orifice size listed? No. But basically the angle is one thing, and the orifice size, which is the hole in the center, that's another thing.
What does the angle look like then, if that's not the hole?
Well, if you look at the center, instead of being a round hole, it's an oblong hole. And the bigger the angle, the more that hole is tapered out or flared out. And then we're talking about a quick connect. Well, this is the quick connect. So now this won't come out. And you have to be very careful when you're using these, because if you just push it on, oh there, it's on. As soon as you start the pressure washer off, this is heading off into space. And usually it ends up in the middle of the car underneath it, just where you can't reach it.
I remember when I first bought my Kranzel, there was a number of options on the website for orifice size, and I just went with the recommended one.
Yeah.
But I imagine they offer different orifice sizes for a reason. So is there one that you would recommend, and what is the why?
I like to go with the smallest orifice size you can get. You'll build a little more pressure, you'll use less water, you'll make your detailing easier.
And with a higher orifice size?
You just have more water flow, and you'll reduce the pressure a little bit. And actually, my favorite pressure washing tip is this one, the turbo tip.
Ah, the turbo tip.
Yeah, so the turbo tip, you can get these in different orifice sizes, but they go in a circle. So you're talking about that one straight line tip that you strip concrete with. That's what this has, but it's going around in a circular motion really fast, and it impacts the panel better. So it actually cleans better
as it's touching
doing the rotation. It's like agitation. And again, this is a simple on there, and away we go. Now, a lot of people like these shorty guns, and they're fine. Personally, I like about a 12-inch extension on mine.
Really?
Yeah, just makes getting into wheels, tires, door jambs a little easier, and I don't get the blowback on me as much because I've got a bit of a distance between me and the vehicle. And also I can get the lowers of the car without having to bend over because I can get the gun down there.
Sort of a long extension with a curve, that's the one
but maybe 12 to 18 inches long.
Okay, you don't.
I see some people with like a 4-foot extension on there, and they're trying to wash the car, but they're up against the wall because the thing's too long. So, the lance is too long. And these ones with the quick connect, is you can put the extension in through the quick connect, so you can build on it if you like.
All right, I'm going to ask that question that I hope someone out there says, I'm glad Nick asked that. Maybe I didn't feel like I could ask it. When you start to get leaks around all these quick connects, like what's going on? Do I need tape in there, or like what? Okay, first thing, it's leaking. What do you look for first?
Okay, well, where's it leaking from? Is it leaking between the body and the connector? If it is, then you need to put some form of sealant on there, be it a Teflon tape or what they call pipe dope. So that's one of the things. But often over time, there's a little O-ring in here. And that O-ring, right at the bottom, we can't see it here and we'll get some B-roll of it later. But that O-ring, if it's leaking around from here to your orifice, then you know it's that little O-ring. They're easy to replace, they cost pennies. It's always good to have one on hand.
I'm just letting it all sink in.
Yeah, exactly.
What else, Ivan?
That's pretty much it.
Because I know there's so much content out there about pressure washers, but I hope Ivan's unique knowledge and my ability to maybe know what the basic questions are out there before you get so advanced.
Yeah.
I like to have you break it down a couple times.
And
so I'm your brother, I'm your son. I'm like, Ivan, I know you know the detailing space. What pressure washer should I get? If I want to have fun with the foam, I want to do the foam cannon, like, what would you recommend for someone on a budget?
So foam cannon, you want at least 1,000 PSI.
For your pressure washer.
Right. Mm-hmm. Other than that, let yourself go. If you're new to the pressure washer space, if you think you might want one but you're not sure, go on Marketplace or on Craigslist and pick one up there.
Yeah, they're going to be selling those. So
yeah.
You could get a relatively cheap, so then you could go for like a relatively cheap pressure washer and invest in the foam cannon. Don't get a new gun, don't get a new hose, but get yourself the foam cannon with the budget pressure washer. And at least you're able to, that's how you create foam right away.
Right, and just changing these tips will change the feeling, the whole thing of your pressure washer. So, like I said, my favorite tip is the turbo tip, but it's not something that's very common. They're a little more expensive. They do have wear parts in them, so they wear out, but it is a tip that is going to give you better cleaning ability.
So if folks out there have questions, or if you have a pressure washer that you particularly like, that you've used, one you'd never buy again, one that you love, a foam cannon, a lance, a this, a that, leave it down below, because I feel like we can all keep learning, and oftentimes a product comes out that we haven't used before, and sometimes those are the little diamonds in the rough.
Oh, definitely. So if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas, leave it below, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.